Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Exterior Home Solutions Volquest podcast. Exterior Home Solutions, they've been local and trusted since 1999. If you have a need for home renovations, home repairs, window, siding, roofing, whatever the case may be, contact Exterior Home Solutions today. That number is 865-524-5888, or you can visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Alongside Austin Price, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs, I am Eric Kane. We got a lot to discuss today, but the most pressing matter, I guess, or the biggest thing so far in fall camp was the playing of scrimmage number 1. That was on Friday night. Had a couple of days to let it digest a little bit. What do you feel like is the talk and the mood from Tennessee football, Brent Hubbs, following scrimmage number 1 a couple of days ago?
Well, if you talk to all the coaches on the staff when they get to the podium, then this is one of the elite football teams in the history of college football. It's kind of what it feels like. It talks about this coaching staff clearly
Not
likes
Rodney.
Well, even Rodney was pretty complimentary. I mean, for Rodney's standards, he shot down the whole outside world accolade, but it wasn't like he was. It was a far cry from we're just trying to move the needle every day. I mean, he gave him some praise. So, I do think this coaching staff, Austin, likes this team. I think they like the makeup of this team. They're far from a finished product. But I think that, defensively, it all starts about the line of scrimmage for them. And they're really good up front and the defensive front. And then offensively, I don't know that the Nico hype train's growing because I don't know how much more it can grow, but there's nothing to slow down kind of the thought that this offense got a chance to be really good with Nico, running the show for them.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think that when you look at this team offensively, it all starts and ends with Nico, and I do like the pieces they put around him. They've got to get the linemen back, and that's a real point of emphasis. I think is to get John Campbell back, to get Lance Hurd back, more so Hurd than Campbell. But just to kind of get that offensive line as cohesive as you can, to get them to play as many reps as they can before the season starts. And again, it does help you play Chattanooga to start the season, so you kind of get a little bit of a warm up there before you get to NC State. But I do love the pieces around him on offense, and then defensively, it's just the unknown in the secondary. And after that, I think why would you not feel good about kind of where Tennessee's at on both sides of the ball? So just a little bit of unknown on each side of the ball, but some nice pieces.
Well, I'll kind of jump in there, and this isn't necessarily on the scrimmage, but the defense did win the scrimmage on Friday, and that's no
whatever that means.
Yeah. I mean, it's the first scrimmage of fall camp, and typically defenses usually win that scrimmage. But also you had the makeshift offensive line and a bunch of guys missing on offense. But you did see an interception for Jacoby Thomas in a video that Tennessee put out from that scrimmage on Monday. Rob, you had Willie Martinez say that they had 4 takeaways in practice. Jamal McCoy had a pick 6 in Monday's practice. So it feels like there's some plays being made in the defensive secondary. It's just until we see them out there and how they play, it's just going to continue to be an unknown.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I thought that was probably the most noteworthy thing Coach Martinez said today. But you got to take that with a grain of salt. Who threw them? What was the situation like? But man, it's talking to Coach Martinez today, it really kind of hits home. I mean, they're going to have a completely new secondary. I mean, like all 5 starters, and I guess probably a lot of fans would say that's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's the really probably the biggest storyline of camp right now. Maybe, don't you think, guys?
Yeah.
I mean, just what it's going to look like back there.
Yeah, the first real sign that Jalen McCullough wouldn't be back was when I saw him make that tackle in the Rams preseason game. I mean, until then, I thought there's still a chance. There's still a chance.
I mean,
good play too.
How many years do you think you have 5 new starters in the secondary?
Yeah, I mean it's not commonplace. I mean, at all. And they are the unknown. They're the unknown really of the entire football team. Because listen, I think we all know Nico's going to make some mistakes, right? I mean, that's a given. But everybody has known since last August that this was going to be Nico's team. Joe was a senior and Nico was stepping in. So you knew who the future was going to be there, right? All right, Jalen Wright's gone, Jabari Small's gone, but you knew it was going to be Dylan Sampson. You knew what receivers were going to come back. All right, they had to get some work done at tight end, but you knew the core about what they were in the line of scrimmage on offense. You knew the defensive front was going to be good. Keenan Peely coming off an injury. You had an idea of what they were at linebacker. You just don't know what they are in the secondary, Austin. I mean, faster, more fleet of foot, but are they going to go with a veteran guy, and a guy like Will Brooks, who clearly has the trust of Willie Martinez and Tim Banks? And then you said it on the 2-minute drill. I mean, Christian Harrison, no offense to him, but he was an afterthought all of last year, right? And now he's in a position that he may be a starter at star. There may not be a bigger out of the blue storyline on the football team than that possibility. So there's just so much unknown back there right now.
Yeah, again, the fans that wanted change, they're going to get change. Now, some of this change they're not going to want. I don't think. I mean, there's already angst about Will Brooks. I think that there'll be even more angst if Boo Carter is set over on the bench and Christian Harrison in there at nickel, just because they want Boo. And so it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. With the secondary and kind of what they elect to do. I know this: if they elect to go Christian Harrison at the nickel, and they elect to go Will Brooks at safety, then that again is another just spotlight on the fact that Tim Banks and Willie Martinez prefer older guys, which is why you should never recruit a high school kid. I mean, at some point you've got to be able to throw a younger guy out there and let him see what he makes. You said yourself, Nico's going to make mistakes. He's also going to make plays, and Boo's going to be the same way. Boo's going to make mistakes, but he's also going to make plays where somebody else just can't make that play.
Well, and Willie Martinez said that. I didn't mean to interrupt you also, but Willie Martinez said that on Monday when asked about Boo Carter. I mean, I won't say he sheepishly answered it, but he was just kind of matter of fact, like, he's really good. So, I mean,
really good.
You didn't say he wasn't ready. You didn't say, you said he was a really good football player. Like, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, you're right. There's going to be angst if it's not him at the star position. And he also went on to say they asked the star to do a lot of things, but they moved him there because he can make plays in any situation, is the way I took the answer. But you guys correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't want to misquote anybody, but that's the way I took it, that they put him at that position because you're the most involved there, and he's a really talented, really good football player.
Yep, that's how I took it. Let me ask you guys this, Rob. What do you think about this? And I know you could just say, well, what's the difference in 1 week to the next? But with all due respect to Tennessee Chattanooga, UT Chattanooga, could you see a scenario where, yeah, Will Brooks, your starting safety. Yeah, Christian Harrison is your starting safety. Boo Carter and Jacoby Thomas and all these other guys play a ton, as they should in that game. And then you roll into the NC State game saying, okay, Boo, let's go. Jacoby Thomas, John Slaughter, whatever, let's go. And then, hopefully still have a rotation back there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is if they line up snap one against UT Chat, it's not the end of the world in my opinion. Now, if they line up snap one against NC State and Oklahoma and so on and so forth, it's like, okay, well, why aren't these guys overtaking these positions?
Yeah, I would tell you, Eric, that if you're afraid to play Boo Carter as a starter against Chattanooga, you're certainly going to be afraid to play him, no matter how he does against Chattanooga, against NC State a week later.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I think whoever starts the Chattanooga game will start the NC State game. Again, who is this year's Gerard Parrish? I mean, it just, again, blows my mind. If you just want to start Jordan Thomas, fine. Well, again, we'll see how it happens. We got 3 weeks till the first game, a little less than 3 weeks till the first game. We'll see if Boo overtakes Christian Harrison. I just think it's more mind-boggling or mind-numbing, really, that Christian Harrison wasn't even playing the position, and all of a sudden he's the starter in the scrimmage. Like, how does that even work? I mean, I can see working him out there, seeing how he does there. Maybe he does beat out Boo for the job, but he just inserted as the starter, having not been there.
Well, he had been there this camp. Maybe not in spring or last year, but I mean, I remember day one, we asked Tim Banks, who was over there at Star, and he mentioned Christian Harrison. So, I mean, maybe he's been there this camp, but it's still new to him.
But in that scenario, he was at safety in the spring.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, Boo Carter has more practice snaps at Star in a college uniform than Christian Harrison had going into the first scrimmage.
Yeah.
And that's kind of AP. That's kind of the point, right?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's just like, I guess I'm just and this is not to hate on Chris Harrison. I think Chris Harrison can be just fine, but like it still makes you leery of their ability to play the young kids. Like they were leery to do it a year ago. I mean, think about it. I mean, it took Ricky Gibson forever to get any kind of real run. Here we are a year later. You bring in Jacoby Thomas from MTSU. We'll see if he can get past Will Brooks between now and the first game or not. John Slaughter. I mean, multiple people raved about John Slaughter a year ago, and yet here we are a year later, and he's just running with the twos. So at some point, rubber's got to meet the road on some of this stuff. And so we'll see what happens over the next few weeks to see if anybody can get past some of these older guys who right now kind of have the inside track.
I think they'll treat Tennessee Chattanooga as a scrimmage. And I know, you back of your mind, you're thinking Georgia State and all that, but I mean, that different scenario. This roster is 20 times but more talented and better than that roster that lost to Georgia State. I don't know. I mean, I'm with you in the terms of, if you're not going to start some of these young guys against Chattanooga, then why would you start them against NC State? I just think that truly is, you can view it as kind of the last dress rehearsal of fall camp, even though it's a regular season game. I don't know if all this is going to be all settled in camp. I mean, we're midway through camp, and it's definitely not settled in terms of, if the season started today, right, Brent? Will Brooks would be your starting safety, and it sounds like Harrison will be your starting star.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you're at right now. We'll see if that's where it is in 2 weeks, and I think that's what Austin and Rob were saying. I mean, who knows? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, all right, you're going to use game one as an audition, if you will, for people. I mean, then you got to do that. You got to be committed to doing that, because I mean, Tennessee played some. I mean, it's not like they played a bunch of Power 5 openers the last couple of years, right? And you go back in the starting safety, and I'm not picking on Jalen McCullough. This is just a fact. I mean, he played all but 5 or 6 snaps in the season openers the last 2 years when Tennessee was up 3 or 4 touchdowns in a football game,
where they rotated every other position on defense.
Yeah, so the question is, we're sitting here talking about, are they going to, this is an audition in the first game, but that's great if you truly take it that way. Or is it going to be one of those deals where you're looking up in the third quarter and they haven't played those other guys? They haven't really rotated them in. I mean, you talk about rubber meeting the road. The first rubber that's got to meet the road is the willingness that when you have an opportunity to play young guys in that position, you have to take full advantage of playing those young guys. And I think the same can be said for your offensive line. But I think there's other places on the team where they've done a really good job of that. I thought Willie did a nice job of that last year at corner until they got beat up out there. They just didn't do it in the middle of the field because you're worried about giving up a play. Or if you're going to be that way, I mean, how much are you going to really work those guys? That would be what I'm curious to see, is how heavy is the rotation really in week one, because they've got to step outside of their comfort zone from what we've seen the last 3 years. To be really willing to do that, because that's not been their MO, so to speak, at that position.
So secondary is still very much a question. There's still a couple weeks left of fall camp until the opener, obviously. Back to the scrimmage on Friday, Rob. Can you get I mean, I know there's things you can take and you can look at and you can grade film and all that. I get it. Can you get a real look at the offense whenever you have Larry Johnson, your backup tackles, trying to block Dane Davis or trying to block James Pierce? You've got, your when everybody's healthy, maybe your third or fourth string running back starting out there. A couple of playmakers on the outside are not playing. Can you get a real look at the offense in a scrimmage when you have all those guys out?
Well, I mean, we weren't there, but I mean, to me, it sounds like it would be tough. I mean, just, like we talked about, you always expect the defense to be ahead at this stage anyway, and then you pile on the fact that you have a patchwork offensive line going against that that front seven that's deep and intact and healthy. And I don't know, like I said, we weren't in the stadium to see it, but I would have a hard time thinking that, you really got everything done on offense that you wanted to get done. Just mismatch. I mean, I'd say even right now, if the offensive line is healthy, the defensive line has a pretty significant advantage, I would say.
Yeah, because they're grown men, they're experienced, they're deep. They're going to give pretty much every team in the country, I would imagine, a pretty tough day at the office. Austin, everything you've heard in terms of the run game, obviously Dylan Sampson didn't go. Cam Selden still being held out. Deshaun Bishop went with the ones. Peyton Lewis went with the twos. Sound like Deshaun Bishop, he got some praise from the head coach afterwards. He just keeps showing up.
Yeah, again, a kid that just has been somebody who, just gets it done dating back to when he was a high school kid at Carnes, and, just continues to get better. Peyton Lewis continues to pick things up. Cam Selden continues to progress in his his recovery, and again, the hopes are that he'll be cleared for week 1, and we'll see if that happens. This is a running game that, even with Dylan Sampson not going, there was always going to be, inexperience, and always going to be a lot of questions going into the season. Now, what does that mean when the lights come on come August 31st and a week later against NC State, and then a week later after that against Kent State? I don't know. But this is a running game that doesn't offer a ton of experience, even with Dylan Sampson. And so to me, it's going to be kind of like, just kind of fill it out early in the year and kind of take the hop back and roll with it.
Well, and here's the thing, back to your question, Eric, and the point, and I agree with you also on all the running back stuff. I mean, we'll see, but you talk about the defensive line, and you talk about, development, and how do you figure out these guys or whatever on the offensive line. If this offensive line is not being, if the development there is not there this fall camp, I don't know if you're ever going to have a better time to develop a bunch of young players on the offensive line. I'm going to read this off because I just jotted this down. I'm going to read this off, and this is my thought on the defensive front. Okay, first team: James Pierce, Amari Thomas, Omar Norman Lott, and I'm going to give Dominique Bailey the start at strong defensive end. That's your first team going against your first team offensive line in a scrimmage that features 2 backup tackles, right? Okay, the second team you're bringing in, if you stay just in your base, you're bringing in Joshua Josephs for James Pierce. Then you're going Elijah Simmons, Bryson Eason, and I'll go Tyree West as your second team. Your third team features Caleb Herring, Jackson Moy, Davin Hobbs, and either Tyree Weathersby or Jason Jenkins. And oh, by the way, I've not mentioned Jordan Ross's name yet in that group. Like, that's a dumb depth chart. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, and all of them Austin scrimmaged on Friday night. Like, nobody got held out for maintenance. Like, it was strap it up and go for those 14 guys on the defensive line on Friday night.
Yeah. Again, it's like, to put it in golf terms, it's like the offensive side is going to play Oakmont without a driver. I mean, like, the defense is stifling. They're deep, and they all go. Like, I mean, you just have to give them credit for all being there, being present, being ready to go. They didn't just do a handful of snaps. And, that's what Keenan Peedley, once you get to the middle part of the defense, not going, because they just want to keep him healthy for the season. I think the defense has a real shot to just be fantastic. Even if there was some question marks in the secondary, I think the front 7 can really mask some of it, at least, against certain teams.
I mean, that's 14 guys, and Nathan Robinson's on the roster, who's not listed there as well. I mean, it's. I mean, they should wear some offensive lines out if they stay healthy. I mean, when you look at it in that terms, I mean, it's just. I don't know that this is. I mean, they don't have a John Henderson or an Albert Hainsworth in the middle, Rob, but I've covered them 30 years, and I've never been able to rattle off 14 or 15 names of guys who would be in a regular rotation, not as a third team guy. They would be in the top 8 at most SEC schools.
And sorry to cut you off, Rob, think about where you were at defensive tackle entering last year, because we had no clue about Omar Norman Lott. Okay. Elijah Simmons could never stay on the field. Hobbs was a true freshman. Bryson Eason, yeah, he was there. It's a name we knew, but he wasn't, who he is now. I mean, in the year span, especially in the interior, now you're about to lose all those guys. In the interior, I mean, you've gotten so much better over the last calendar year as well.
I mean, I think it's remarkable. I mean, the program is in much better shape than it was in a lot of different areas. But man, you just look at the defensive line. It looks like an SEC, a top shelf SEC defensive line. I mean, how many NFL guys are there? Half a dozen, maybe.
Yeah, and so again, how is by just logging snaps, AP? I mean, isn't Gage Ginther getting better? Jesse Perry getting better? I mean, all those guys are going against dudes that are going to play on Saturday. I'm not talking about when it's best against the rest. I'm just talking about, hey, we're going to go with the threes, and this is what you're going against. I mean, it has to enhance the growth of those young offensive linemen. That should be the best thing Glenn Ellerby's got going for him right now. Is those guys every day are going against that caliber of a player.
Yeah, I mean, when you go to your second team, it's not nearly as good as the defensive second team, but because you're going against that, when they actually see another defensive line, they're gonna be like, "Oh, these guys aren't as good." You know what I mean? It's going to be significantly slower to them compared to going against Tennessee's defensive line, which is just, I mean, when you just say it out loud, that you can say they're deep and all that stuff. But when you do it like Hubs did it and you just start laying it out loud, it's like, whoa.
Anything else from the scrimmage? Scrimmage number 1 that maybe stood out to you guys that is a good building block moving into scrimmage 2 this week? Anything else, AP, that maybe we're forgetting to mention here?
I don't think so.
I think the best thing coming out of scrimmage 1,
Ethan Davis.
Yes, the second best thing coming out of scrimmage 1 is the number of guys who were going to scrimmage in scrimmage 2 that didn't go. I think Mike Matthews is going to do some things. Some of these guys that got held out, that Brew McCoy, much to his dismay, I don't think you're going to do anything with him. You're not going to do anything with Keenan Peely. But I do think in Austin, you asked this question, and you got the sense from Josh Heupel's answer on Friday night, there's some guys that need work. Maybe they don't get 60 snaps, right? But you get Lance Hurd some work in scrimmage number 2, and Mike Matthews gets some work, and Dante Thornton, and some of these guys get some work in scrimmage 2 to help you go. I think that's a storyline for scrimmage 2 coming out of scrimmage 1 is who's going in the second scrimmage that didn't go in the first scrimmage, and how different can that make your offense look compared to what you had on Friday night?
Should make them look dramatically different. Just because you're going to have, if you can get at least one of those tackles back and just, kind of solidifies one side of the line. And again, getting the playmakers back, whether it be eventually getting Cam Seldon back, which he won't be ready for Thursday, but, getting some of those wide receivers a little bit more healthy. Even the ones that went the other night had been in red jerseys a practice or 2 before. So just kind of getting all the nicks and bruises and stuff, which, I mean, heck, we're 10 days, 11 days in fall camp. There shouldn't be that many, but apparently this team, does. And so just kind of getting all those guys back out there, one, helps Nico and just helps the offense in general, but it really helps Nico.
Yeah, the whole red jersey thing's confusing. Like, Cam Seldon's wearing a red jersey. We know that he's not doing contact right now. Caleb Webb had a red jersey on, I guess, Thursday of last week, and he was scrimmaging on Friday, so it's a little confusing at times. A lot more fall camp notes to get into. We'll take a stock report on some of the Tennessee players, how they performed so far into fall camp. That and a whole lot more here on this edition of the Volquest podcast. Do want to welcome back a proud sponsor of the show. That is Game Time. Game Time is an app to where you can buy tickets to events in your area last minutes, and sometimes the later you wait, the better the deals are. You can download the safe, secure, easy-to-use app, the Game Time app, and if you put in the promo code ON3, you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. That's promo code ON3 at the Game Time app. All-in prices where the toggling feature shows the total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. You get views of your seat before you pay for them. They got the lowest price guarantee where Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find a cheaper ticket in the same section on an alternative app. Plus, Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. You've got Game Time Picks as well, a new feature this year that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. Game Time Picks that filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Not just for sports as well. It can be comedy shows, can be concerts, can be whatever's happening, again, in your area. So it could be at Neyland Stadium, could be at the Bijou Theater, Tennessee Theater, or the Food City Center. Buy your tickets on the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, put in the promo code ON3, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And as always, do want to give a shout out to our title sponsors, Exterior Home Solutions.
Severe weather can strike at any time in East Tennessee, and Mother Nature can do severe damage to the first and most important line of defense that you and your family have against Mother Nature, and that is your roof. Whenever she strikes, make sure that you call the people that I call. Make sure you trust the people that I trust, and that's my friends at Exterior Home Solutions, because they're more than friends, they're truly family.
Big thanks as always to our friends over at Exterior Home Solutions for being a part of this coverage, 865-524-5888, or online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. All right, let's take a stock report on some Tennessee players midway through fall camp. I'm going to name a player. You guys tell me if their stock is up or their stock is down or stagnant at this point in fall camp. We'll start.
Card Sharks, baby. Card Sharks. Here we go.
We will start with Arion Carter at linebacker. Stock up, down, or stagnant?
I think it feels like stock's up. Don't you guys think?
My stock's up on Arion Carter.
I mean, it sounds like
Absolutely.
it feels like he's generating some buzz.
Yep, he's healthy, ready to go, going to start. I'm up on Arion Carter, AP.
Yep, stock up.
Let's go Caleb Herring. Haven't heard a lot about Caleb Herring.
I would go stock stagnant here, just because, I mean, they are so deep there. I mean, they don't have to have him be some superstar. But I think he's, when he gets in the game, that's what, which goes back to the point we made in the last segment. Like, if you're those offensive linemen on other teams and you see a Tennessee defense rotate, you'll be like, oh, thank gosh, that guy's coming out of there. And then this guy's going to go, whoa, what is that? So, I mean, I would go stock stagnant for right now. But, I mean, when you look at the weight and stuff, it's hard not to see that he's going to be stock up pretty quick once he can put pen to paper in terms of playing time.
A guy we heard an awful lot about in spring that we haven't heard as much in fall camp, linebacker Jeremiah Telander.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen it in the scrimmage, but it feels like Carter is kind of leapfrogged him, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think Jeremiah's going to play. But.
Yeah, I think Telander is an inside guy. I mean, I think that's a deal with him and Peely, and I think Carter's more of the space guy. I'm not saying Telander can't play out there, but I think there's a comfort level with him being more of an in the box, more of an in the box true inside linebacker, more with Peely. Again, I mean, the buzz on the defense has been all about the defensive front, and rightfully so, because I think they've handled a lot of things. So I would say, to a degree, it feels like a linebackers in general. Even though I love where Carter's at athletically. I think he looks the part fantastically. You haven't heard, man, they had a bunch of tackles or they racked up a bunch of negative yards plays. It's much more about the defensive line right now on this defense. At least it was on Friday night. But I think Telander and Peely are going to rotate. But. And they're going to play because I think William Inge wants to rotate those guys. I don't think that Telander's down. He's probably just kind of where he was in the spring. The difference is Peely's out there, and he's splitting more reps than he was splitting in the spring.
I think we can all agree that Jamal McCoy's stock is up significantly, right? I mean, we knew that he was a playmaker in spring, but he's a bit more comfortable now, and he's going to start. He's going to be a playmaker.
Yes.
So all the conversations about the other safety, but what about Andre Turrentine? Stock up or down?
I'm going to say stagnant.
I think his stock is up from where he was a year ago. I don't know how much significantly it's up since the spring. I think Andre's one of those guys that, playing time, getting some reps, getting to play probably is a big help to him. Not saying he's a bad practice player, but I think for his engagement, involvement and reps or, playing in a game is a big deal for him. I think he's done some solid things. So, I mean, up from where it was a year ago, probably about where he was coming out of spring practice. I don't know that there's anything dramatically different right now.
John Slaughter felt like he was on the up, but again, it's in a battle there at safety. You haven't heard his name an awful lot, whereas we've heard Will Brooks and Jacoby Thomas.
Well, I know that they've rotated a lot on the practice field with those safeties, which tells me that John Slaughter's stock is up from where it was. Now, that doesn't mean he's getting ready to be a starter, but they are more freely rotating, or they have been more freely rotating at the safety position. We'll see how that trickles and changes as we move forward here over the next week or so. But I think John Slaughter's stock is up from the spring. That doesn't mean he's getting ready to be a starter, but I do think that he's gotten more comfortable, and I think he's earning a little more trust from the coaching staff, AP, or a little more confidence from the coaching staff. Maybe that's a better word.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, it's somebody who drew a ton of buzz from his practice time a year ago. I know was hoping to take a big leap this offseason, and at least has made some semblance of a move in fall camp. I don't know how much that is, but I know that there's been some compliments thrown his way behind the scenes.
Let's do this position group together, because it feels like when you mention one, you mention the other two. Tight end, feels like all three of those guys, Ethan Davis, Holden Stays, Miles Kitselman, are going to play. Ethan Davis and Miles Kitselman, I feel like it'd be 2 thumbs up for stock up, because you hear about them all the time. But overall, Rob, it feels like tight end, thumbs up, especially where you were at the end of last year when you literally had no clue.
Yeah, I mean, compared to what you were looking at in December, I would almost argue that it's maybe a position of strength now. And and a lot of that has to do with, I think Ethan Davis has got a chance to be a dude. And just in this offense, as creative as Heupel is, and they have not had a guy at tight end even close to him. And I will be interested to see, what they can do with him. And the weight gain, he had to get stronger. He's done that. Kitselman, he looks, I'm not saying he's Kellen Winslow or anything, but he's not just a big physical blocker. That guy moves pretty well.
It's not Victor McClure playing.
That's a good one.
Putting on a tight end jersey, right? Right.
That's a great reach.
Yeah, he's not a guard playing tight end. He's a better athlete. I think that position group as a whole is an up, AP. I think, for me, Kitselman's the biggest surprise. I knew Ethan Davis was always a good athlete. It was a matter of could he stay healthy and could he get physical enough. When Miles Kitselman got here, has there been any less fanfare for a scholarship transfer from one SEC school to another than Miles Kitselman? It was just like he just kind of showed up, right? Like he wasn't coveted in the portal. He didn't take 4 or 5 visits. He just, they took this guy. They took this transfer from Alabama. But the reality is he's going to play a lot.
Absolutely. And was thought of by many just to be a depth piece, came in here in the spring. Now, the surprise was spring, Hubs. I don't think you're surprised now. Right. There was more buzz out of him last spring than anybody.
Fair.
And so, this is a kid that, somebody on the general's quarter said, looks just like Jacob Warren. Yeah, because he wears 87. Jimmy Holiday didn't look like, Jermaine Copeland just because he wore number 6. That's silliness. So, those guys are different players, just in body type, how they block, how they do all those things. But Kitselman's a guy that, came in with not a lot of fanfare, as Hub said, and just kind of put his head down and went to work. And he's got 1 year left, and he is going to throw everything he can in this last run here with Tennessee and see what happens. But, that position on the whole is definitely stock up. Even Holden Stays, who, came in from Notre Dame with all the fanfare, is going to help this football team. It's not like he can't play.
Right.
I think what you found out here is get someone coming from Alabama in the SEC,
probably a little more prepared.
Yeah.
I think what's going to be interesting to me, Eric, is do they really start to play some 2 tight end stuff, which we really haven't seen a whole lot of. do they do that in particular in the red zone? Because I mean, when you look at them in the red zone, that's the biggest area they've got to improve upon. I mean, there's not a bigger stock down coming out of last year than their offensive inefficiency in the red zone.
Yeah.
I mean, 26 fewer red zone touchdowns from 22 to 23, which is pretty remarkable when you think about 22 and all the visions you have of 22 is Jalen Hyatt's running 50 yards for a score against somebody. But they had 26 fewer red zone touchdowns a year ago than they had in 22 and only 14 fewer trips. So how much do they use two tight ends in the red zone? Can they create some schematic advantages in those areas with two tight ends, which they haven't been able to do really in the past?
Yeah, and they've tried, talking about like counting on, one hand how many times they put, a couple of tight ends out there together in the red zone. They've tried it. They just don't, again, they haven't had the luxury. They haven't had the ability to do that in years past, but I think they do this year. So, I'll be intrigued to see if that is incorporated in the offense and the red zone where they've got to get better. They got to improve. Let's do a couple more here. This one I think is interesting because it might not be any fault of his own. He had a ton of hype in spring, but the position group is just so good. Braylon Staley, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, just doesn't seem like we're hearing a lot of buzz. Man, that's going to be a tough. I mean, even for Mike Matthews and all the hype, I mean, that's going to be a hard place for a freshman to get reps. I mean, watching Braylon, running around out there, he looks like the real deal. But man, that's tough to get reps at receiver for a freshman, right?
Yeah, he was kind of the story the first couple of days of spring.
What's that, AP?
I said, which just makes him stock stacked.
Yeah, I don't think that's not a negative on him. They look pretty loaded out there to me.
Jake Merklinger, his progression.
I don't
know. I would say stagnant.
I mean, here's the thing, and this is what I'll say about Jake Merklinger. I think he's gotten better. I think he's definitely better than he was in the spring, as you would expect. If Nico lost his helmet, had to have his ankle retaped, or if Tennessee was needing, for whatever reason, somebody to close out a game, it's Gaston Moore. If Nico were hurt for any kind of period of time, they're playing both those quarterbacks. They play Merklinger and Moore, and that's where it's at right now. And I think Merklinger's gotten stronger. I think he's starting to understand things better. Here's the thing that people need to understand and probably doesn't get talked about enough, which is really kind of ironic, but because the notion by some people about Josh Heupel's offense is it's so quarterback friendly, and it doesn't prepare you for the next level because it's one-sided or it's such a schematic advantage and this, that, and the other. The reality is they asked their quarterbacks to do a lot. They asked them mentally to do a lot of stuff. And so I think to come in as, I think it's unfair to come in as a freshman and say, okay, this guy's going to be, he's automatically your backup and he's ready to go if anybody needed. I mean, Joe was going to have to struggle mightily for there ever to be a conversation about Nico. And there wasn't even after the A&M game when Joe did struggle mightily because he just wasn't ready mentally for all that they asked him to do in this offense. So I think Jake's Merklinger's at a stock stagnant, but he's better than he was in the spring, and he's in a natural progression of a young quarterback in a offense that asks the quarterback to do a lot of things.
Last one's kind of a two-parter, and maybe this is unfair, but because he's been a bit banged up and because of the evolution, I guess, of Chris Brazzell, who is stock up significantly, Dante Thornton will be stocked down, right? Because others are going out there making headlines right now, and he's getting back on the practice field, and he's been out there the last couple of days. But while he's been out, it's almost like he's been passed, and he had a really, really good spring.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for him is, and we've said it for a month, a month plus about that position group. Better not take an off day. Better not miss time, because if you do, there's somebody there to take those reps and give a chance to take your spot, or to move up the depth chart, if you will. And I think him missing time, and Mike Matthews missing time, I think those guys are just kind of flat, a little bit flat right now. And that's not their fault that they miss time, but because they miss time, it's given Nimrod more opportunities, right? It's given Brazel plenty of chances out there, and some of those guys. So, we'll see. I mean, I think this is a big scrimmage. And I said it earlier. I think that's why this scrimmage is important, because I think they're going to get some of those guys back. And there's some guys who need to get back, right? Matthews needs to get on the field and show what he can do. I mean, Andre Keurig, if he's going to be the starting guard,
Yeah.
AP, he's got to practice. I mean, he's got to scrimmage at some point.
I agree. I think this one is as big of a scrimmage for that one kid as anybody.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about them, but at some point they got to be out there and perform. It's not their fault that they're hurt. I'm not saying that, that they're mailing it in. There's no suggestion of that at all. But they have to get well and get out there and show what they can do. And until they do, their stock's not really anything right now.
As Jason Swain said on The Nation Sunday night, reciting Philip Fulmer's words.
You ain't making a club in the tub.
There you go.
Last thing I want to hit on here on this Volquest podcast is something that Josh Hopper brought up a couple of times that they incorporated in the Friday scrimmage, and they'll incorporate it again in the Thursday scrimmage. And it will be a resource they can utilize on the sidelines and in the booth, more or less on the sidelines this Saturday for games, Saturdays for games. That is iPads, the new technology. You asked the question to Willie Martinez earlier this week, a guy that's been on the sideline. He's had a headset in the booth. He's called defense from the sideline. He's had a blackboard. It's new. It's different. Do you think this is something that the staff will embrace, the use of iPads on the sideline? How do you think they're going to go about that this football season?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's going to embrace it, because I think players are visual learners, and it is. I mean, how many high school games you go to and they got a 36-inch television on the sideline?
Everyone
playing a huddle clip. As soon as somebody comes over, they're showing them, hey, here's what happened on this big play you gave up, or here's the block you missed here. So I think for the players, they understand how to do it and how to use it. So it's a bigger adjustment for them if you're drawing on a blackboard, because nobody in high school is drawing on a blackboard. Even when they're in team room, right? Everything's on a huddle highlight deal with a laser pointer. So for the players, it's probably easier. I think the question is, now Willie's got 2 assistants under him on the sideline, right? I mean, how many guys are in orange polos, coaching polos, but on the field during a game? So all those guys should have plenty of help. But I mean, you're in a hurry to do something, and how many of us do this, right? And particularly somebody who's older. If it doesn't work, the first thing we're doing is we're beating on the device, and you're throwing it somewhere because it doesn't work. So that'll be their transition for them a little bit. Is you can't throw the iPad. You can throw the blackboard. You can break it, or you can click, or you can kick it, as we saw a former head coach do one time.
I was going to say that came to mind.
You can't really do that with the iPad. So I mean, it's just you got to embrace technology, and some of us struggle with that. Right, AP? I'm pointing at myself, right?
Well, you're talking about blackboards, Hubs. I mean, I've never seen a blackboard down on the sideline in years. Dry
erase, whatever. Same concept.
Hubs over there with chalk.
Got a map with little sticky buttons on it.
So for this Thursday, it's about
get that reference, by the way.
This Thursday, it's about getting guys back into the fold. Meaning, if some of these guys don't get in there and scrimmage, it's not the end all be all, but they're putting themselves significantly behind. Would you say, AP?
I think
some of them are.
Yeah, putting themselves, like, if Lance Hurd doesn't go, Lance Hurd's going to start the first game.
Lance Hurd's going to be okay.
Andre Keurig, not as much. Like that opens the door right there for Jackson Lampley or Sham or one of those other guys to take it. So yeah, it's not a black and white thing. There's lots of gray, and I do want to say there's one final stock up, stock down, stock stagnant I want to go over, guys, and that is Eric's Light. I would definitely go stock down on Eric's Light.
Me too.
Oh, it's a stock up today, right?
No, it's out.
Is it out?
It's out.
It went over the.
It went over the 2 whatever time limit AP gave before we recorded.
2:34 in real time. What time did it go out? Did you look?
About 2:38, about 10 minutes ago in real time. So just over.
Missed it by that much.
As you can see, we got a lot going on here at Volquest.com. Continual camp coverage, big time recruiting announcements set to come up this weekend. I want to be dialed into Volquest.com
Who's committing?
throughout that as well. Scrimmage coming up on Thursday. Some of the best notes on the General's quarters and best conversation. Usually it's all rational. You can hang out with us over here at Volquest.com. If you're watching on YouTube right now, $1 for 2 months. Put in that promo code. $1 for 2 months at Volquest.com by putting in that promo code. The access is the best that you're going to find in the market covering Tennessee Volunteers. We'll be back on Thursday for the mailbag edition of the show. For Austin Price, Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, I'm Eric Kane. Big thanks as always to Exterior Home Solution for sponsoring us here on the Volquest Podcast.